Welcome back to the Madden God. I'm Max, your host. I'm here with the wonderful Roxanne. How are you, Roxy?
Hello, Max. I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. In the heat of summer, I'm enjoying wearing as less clothes as I can, as it's as hot as it can. So it's a new universe, a new experience because, well, we don't have that much heat in my memory. Generally, we are much
You're
more,
much cooler.
how can I say,
So, for
cooler.
everyone out there
Yes,
who doesn't know about Max, he lives in Switzerland and it's
Switzerland.
very
Yeah,
hot, and the UK is having a heat wave as well, and pretty much everyone. So, Max doesn't have an AC. And here in America, we
AC.
have,
No,
especially here in Texas, we have uh, lots of
everywhere.
air conditionings. And we have different things, swamp
Yeah,
coolers, and for those of you know what a swamp cooler is, and things like that to keep cool. And they've got wax, so to them this is a brand new universe, a new experience of 40 degrees Celsius on a
yeah,
daily basis instead of
yeah.
40 degree would be an uncommon day, but it would only last a day in previous ideas of moments of now, but now it's constant, and you guys are
Yeah.
sweating your little nads off. Women
We
are getting
are, we
boob
are,
sweat like
and
no other time before.
yes, and we are as surprised as you can get. And so we navigate that with yeah, a lot of dignity. So what are we going to talk today about? So we're going to talk about the position of human, let's say, in the universe, but not necessary, right? It's a vast topic, uh, centered on the human, as the human has a lot of luck around his position, as we do not perceive ourselves as in any position. We're just perceiving us as less than, which is what we have learned from infancy, right? That we have no value, we have no position, we are just underneath everything else. And especially when we perceive not only Earth, but we try to enlarge our perspective, it becomes even more uh, heavy as what we have to put ourselves underneath of. We have so little self-esteem consideration that we don't know about our position. We don't know about, we don't consider it, we don't perceive it, and so it's so difficult for us then when we start to embody ourselves, to discover and to value human, to value ourselves, because it's even more important to get that discovery of the self. Human gets with that. It's the consequence because we are humans. But when we get there, it's a surprise. It's a discovery. It's something that, oh, so suddenly human becomes something. Suddenly human has a position. Then, well, where do we put ourselves in this that we consider huge, vast, infinite universe of creation? And it's still a situation where we get lost and where we are wondering for a while. Uh, what am I? Why am I? And can I compare myself not only with my fellow humans, but also with the rest of creation. And I think for me, this has been a very interesting evolution in the way I've been realizing myself, because then once you start with going inside and understand and value you for what you are, the way you are, then my experience is that I started to love myself, but I also started to love my reality, my position, the place I am at, as it is, without trying to make it anything else. But I realize it's a journey. It's not a given, because what is given for most of us is the not understanding of it, or the opposite of it, right? That I've been talking at the beginning. So that the I'd say hatred of the self, because it's we get a lot of that. It's you're not good enough. That's the statement I've been hearing for myself a lot, but it's also a statement that I hear many humans giving to other humans. You're not good enough. You will never get there. You're not good enough. You are overvaluing yourself. You don't have the skills, right? Always getting around that statement that is bringing the self down. So for me, I needed a lot of uplifting to bring me to this realization, to accept myself in my universe, or in my world, in my now. And so the position that the human has, then you see it's a huge, big topic, because it touches the fundamental core question of uh, am I worth it? Do I have any worth? And even if I can find any, am I as worth as anyone else? Am I allowed to have any relationship, or have any goal, anything that is that I perceive to be there, but can I have it? Can I be part of it? Or do I have to submit myself, because that's the easy way of perceiving myself, is to be of service, but not the service that we say be of service of others. No, the service of someone that I perceive being superior to me. And so we create for ourselves a reality where we want to be guided, have someone else taking charge of ourselves, because we think that we are not good enough to be able to have a direction, to have a destination, to have a position. And so, well, someone can take care of that for me, right? Because, oh, I can't figure it out. So, this um, this idea, this thing that we put together for ourselves, right? This um, being not enough, has a lot that we take with us all along our lives, all along our journey. So then, at some point, there's the moment where I ask myself, well, then maybe it's time now to take a chance of me. It's the moment I can give myself that chance of discovering, valuing, loving myself, for myself, to give myself a position and discover what that is. Not to see someone above me, but to see myself, just myself, for myself, and navigate that reality, that new universe where I am and I exist. And that changes a lot. And um, accessing accessing the love, and then perceiving the lack, how lackful I have been in all of that, in denying myself, in refusing myself, in not perceiving myself, and valuing the external, and valuing the external above the internal is lack, is the unworth of that is inside, is the negation of me, because I'm assessing that the reality that I perceive as external has more value than what is happening inside of me, what is me. And so in such a perception of reality, where are you? Where can you situate yourself? Yeah. So it has been, as you see, a very interesting journey of discovering. And in the end, cannot promise anything to anyone. I can only express my experience, and my experience has been a experience of discovering me, loving me, and in a way that I didn't know was possible. I never ever expected to love the self, to love me in this way, in this unconditional way. And so that discovery then opens up potentials, potentials, infinite potentials of reality, of creation, of being in here, and and you know, of, oh, or more love, because you know, and this is something that I've discovered for me. But then when I'm discovering this for me, is that my relationship with my co-creators, with the people that I'm interacting, I've seen that that has changed to becoming also unexpectedly such love, such pleasure, such fun in interacting and in being. So I've discovered a position for me, a universe in which I am existing, that was not available for me before. Before this journey, well, I couldn't even, as I said, fathom that this could, that this was possible. So this journey is not only self-discovery; it's all of that. It's also something that cannot be described. It's simply a pleasure, a unconditional discovery of the self. Going and going. Um, and I mean, Roxy, you've been part of this, and you've opened, you've been really right. um, such an important factor for me.
An instrument of change.
Yes, absolutely.
So when I look at the position of a human, I have the inability to position myself if I am not fractal. So let's understand that. We create an objectified universe. The state of being of non-separated, the state of being of oneness and the reality around you is one and all, sequential and simultaneously, call it what you will, only leads me to a conclusion, of course, based upon my human self, because that's all I'm capable of having right now, is my human relationship in there, and the intelligence that's allowed to vibrate through the defenses of the human belief systems of, but real or not real or debatable or that's not true, and trusting the internal self. That's part of the journey. But what I noticed is I can't objectify myself. I can't position myself unless I objectify myself. So the human is constantly positioning itself. See, your journey has been positioning less than. Some people's journey from the get-go is positioning more than. If they're born, like, let's say, into a wealthy family, the astuteness that they gain through coveting ideas puts them in a position of more than. And if they look around as they're growing up, they can see that they are more than if they are using themselves in comparison, which of course we always compare because we're objectified. Then we're looking outside at the objects that are ourselves, and we are comparative to those things. Because that's the game, it's separation. So we're always finding identity in through comparison, of course. So position doesn't, like all things, have a standard space it stays in. It doesn't birth in any particular idea of relationship to reality. It births any and everywhere to the eye of the beholder that chooses to birth itself in the idea of separation, and then we can have positioning. So when you're journeying yourself, when I'm journeying myself and everyone that's listening, you look at the internal self that is relative to the reality around you in every now, and you'll start to be able to notice the self that you truly are, the one that you're creating, that observer self, as opposed to the self that is maintained by you as a positioned self. So let's say you have a particular obligation. Max's obligation, maybe to his family, it was to please, or maybe to himself was to put himself second and put his friends and families first. That's a position. My position in life was I didn't like authority, so I would position myself against authority. I would listen to people that were giving me a connection. I coveted many authorities, things that I were interested in. But when the fag sticks came along, and I'm using that term not in the idea of gay or straight, it's a term we used way back then, come along and try to take away the idea of what you would consider my freedom. I position myself against authority. Then when I would observe that self, in later times, starting to be an awareness, then I can spot and notice my positionings. But when I long and the short of it, we can't have a position unless we are separated. Think about it. I never noticed myself before I got here. I never saw myself until I got here. We have the ability to see outside of ourselves as something other than what we are by nature, one creator, which is reflecting all creators. So I thought that was interesting. And I like positioning myself in my ascension. I like the way I can move myself into a relative relationship of accountability. I've account my ability through time, and I've positioned myself in a status, right? And that status gives me insight and awareness, and it's, of course, based on emotional content, relationship. It makes me feel good, the position I've gained through my abilities and my work. And then soon that tool grows dull, and I have to release it and sharpen myself and acquire new tools, my changing selves. So what used to be a position that I can hold on into time with an ego has to be humbled and released with the evolutionist. The evolutionist is a constant self of change. And then if we look at the mass psyche, humanity has positioned itself as the only intelligent species. Although commonality, the common folks of humanity, not the provation, not the ones proving through science and mathematics and authority, but the common folk know there's life beyond here. Up here in this fractal world of belief systems, we have positioned ourselves into a legislation that says, without seeing it, I won't believe it. And then most people, when they see it, they still don't believe it. They buy into the story. Sometimes they're afraid to actually accept that, because maybe it scares the living shit out of most people to know that we are not the only ones in the universe. And at this point in time, with the technologies that we've discovered, and look at the vastness and the position we are in the absolute onslaught of galaxies we've discovered, and billions of stars in those galaxies, and quadzillion planets in those galaxies around those stars, the ludicrousy of us to say we're the only ones in the universe is most certainly a position, a volatile one at that. So as things start to change in our world, and we start to mature as a species, the idea of holding positions is becoming less and less needful. I remember many places through my time of my evolution when I was growing up in the military, looking at the positions of myself, and I was always the new kid in class, you know? That's a role. That's a status I took, you know? And then I look at humanity as a mass psyche, and the days have gone by, they're diminishing. Like, I'm transgender, that's a position, right? It's my sexual orientation, a position. Well, not to me. It's just what it is. Is my transgender a position? Not to me. But others position me as that. They put me in there, and I can be compared in that position. Some people think that transgenders are wrongful people. There's something wrong with that because it's not natural. And what do humans see? What is nature? And nature represents a variety of ideas. But Scripture doesn't present those ideas, it shuns those ideas. So those ideas, therefore, can be taken a position. And we create positional people that hide behind the democracy of a nation called religion, or the legislation of law that allows us to take action or inaction, allows us these freedoms or stifles these freedoms. But whatever they do is irrelevant as long as you are aware of how the world positions itself, and you don't put yourself in a less than position right then and there about that. Because that's not your world and occurrence of the now. Those are worlds and occurrence of time, possibilities of the future, based off the fears of the past. And then the actions relating to those safety and security measures you take to forge up your reality of comfort. And that's all positional tactation. And we're good at positioning ourselves because we don't know ourselves. We don't know we belong. We don't know we're an intricate part woven into the fabric of creation. We are not more than and we are not less than. We are a unit of collection, a oneness. And when we start to represent that, light bearers across humanity that choose to enlighten the internal self and enact what you said a couple of times in your talk just now, the worth of the self. The worth of the self doesn't have a position. The objectification self does position its own worth in comparison, which is not wrong. That's part of our journey. These are the tools that we use to move along the way. But I look at humanity and it's moving. Sexuality has become marriage and then gay and bisexual and then transgender and polyamorous. I don't even know if that's the right term. But people are starting to see that why have limits? Who is to say law? Just because someone chose this idea of this Bible being a scripture, we turned it into that. But there's been 10,000 religions before the Bible that dominated the idea of the world and changed and shaped it, just like this has. But the collective itself doesn't want to be pigeonholed anymore. It doesn't want to stand behind a certain skirt of freedom that it contains through power that is righteous. And it's not. It's a choice. But we have to understand that. And the only way to understand that is to observe your reality and then look at the actions of you putting yourself in positions of comparison. And then I understand that I positioned myself many times in my life. I positioned myself against the people that actually did the same things to me. I was tired of being picked on, and when I had opportunity to pick on someone else, I would do that. It wasn't really picking on, it was more making fun of, because I was made fun of, because I was a skinny little runt. I'm still 114 pounds. You know, I've been a small person, and when you're 110, 115 pounds when you're a man, you know, when I was Roy, you get a certain position. It doesn't have a dominating look. So you're a little bit softer, a little bit more effeminate, and, you know, things like that. And you get understandable that your own persona puts you in those positions. So you observe yourself. And these aren't rights and wrongs to be corrected. These are things of actionable behavior that you can notice about yourself and how you're showing up, fortifying, and maintaining your position because of certain behavioral appetitical emotions. The appetites of your emotions to be fulfilled with your energy, your focus creates your reality. And then, of course, when I would do something stupid like that, I'd feel my guilt about that because I knew how it felt before. But sometimes you just want to feel good about yourself because you have no goddamn worth. Because when you're born here, you're born less than. Automatically. You're born empty. And then, of course, it's reinforced by humanity. There are a few people out there that do take their kids and give them the absolute freedom of loving themselves and being okay with themselves and not telling them how they're supposed to feel and how they're supposed to think. And that has given me the ability to see for myself. My parents didn't teach me that. Hell no, they were a different breed of oppression in that kind of idea. But what it is, it's in the vibrational psyche. Someone out there gave me a vibrational input of the human collective, somewhere in numerous amount of frequencies that offer behavioral aspects of the self. I connected somewhere, somehow, to a self that says you're worth it. You know? And then you start acting. I got tired of maintaining my images. I got tired of fighting Roxanne that lied within inside of me. And that's when you get to a point of expressing your worthiness. Doesn't mean you become a transgender, doesn't mean you become anything sexually oriented about your sexual preferences. It doesn't mean you do anything in the idea of your political stances or your universal stance against veganism or pro-life or pro-choice. It doesn't matter. What it means is you have awareness. that you are positioning yourself, and that action has vibrational relationships of attraction, potentials of what we call expression of those nows, those particular moments of now, N-O-W, now. And that insight, that intelligence, gives us the ability to make changes. And you yourself, Max, have talked about how much you have fallen in love with you. And love, by the way, folks, is not an emotion. It's a state of being. Just know that. And you'll feel isness, love, the unconditional, as you wake up to yourself. And it's not going to happen overnight. Don't rush this shit. It's a journey. And it takes a master to do this. A master, the discipleship of self-discovery, to really, truly tear down all the ideas that you found truth in, that gave you fulfillment of identity, to position yourself above your own terror, your own emptiness, as we were birthed here, reinforced by the validity of authority, that being your parents, teachers, society in and of itself. You will have the awareness of that self, and you have the ability to change that. And that's the fantastic work of a light bearer, one who chooses to bear their own light without shades of limitation, without shades of acceptance, without shades of shifting themselves in order to be acceptance, and solicitations of ideas, manipulations of ideas, using polarity as the way to express your reality, feeding the hungry lion over and over again, so you may feel your emptiness fulfilled once again, and the cyclic actions of you will continue until you die a slow, miserable fucking death of emptiness. Oh, you might have all your glory around you, but it is exhausting to maintain it. And humanity is leaving those worlds. Vibrationally, the world has changed in such a caliber in the last 40 years. What a massive time for me to incarnate. From the 80s forward, the 70s and the 60s were times that I don't remember, but they were pinnacle times. To go from the staunchy idea 50s, the perfect nuclear family bullshit that we all strive for, to have these renegades of people courageous enough to create a reality without conforming to the standards, to become hippies, but they weren't becoming hippies. They were being themselves. That's the transformational time. And then we took these times of change and we made these created realities. We joined the entire planet in the 90s with the internet. We made it easy for us with Windows 95, with computers and technology. We created the idea of Steve Jobs. We allowed that person to be manifested on this reality and gave him the freedom to give, because we were seeking our own evolution. We were seeking our own change. And we gave ourselves the tools to enlighten ourselves, to become connected, to where I could sit in my apartment in San Antonio, Texas, and talk via the internet instantaneously to my friend Max, who sits in Switzerland, and view him on a television screen, or my computer screen. In this, I'm not casting though, but this is the most monumental time. We are awakening as a species, and the ability to respond to the awakening is a subjective choice. You do not need education on this. You do not need a degree and a resume upon this. This is what you already are by nature. A master joining a master class to ascend a species because you're already good at it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at this planet. You have that salt in you to take away the ideas of humanity's standards and notice your own abilities to navigate and share those abilities with creators, your co-creators on this planet, and move yourself and allowing others to move themselves out of the standards of stagnant positions of nostalgia, of I'm this and I'll always be this. And this is the routine that we stick to. And this is what we're supposed to do. And this is what we should do. And this is what we have to do. And you go, bullshit. We don't have to do anything except what we are. And we can't
Yes.
help but to do ourselves. Whether it's leading through the ego is irrelevant. What's relevant is that you can see yourself, your own actions, and not take cause to judge that self, and not take cause to defend that self. Only to see it is enough. And the journey of enlightenment begins. And the choices through attraction will be given to you, an intelligence, epiphanies. You don't have to seek it. There is no guru out there other than the guru of the self. There is no leader of creation because there's only one and all. That is some good shit.
Yes, it is. And you said something very interesting about the 70s, 80s and people that were taking the chance of expressing themselves as their true self. And I was thinking about you, that you also said that when your physical presence as a Roy, as this 150 pounds man, that little, was not having the weight to really impose. And then I was thinking, well, you see, when I met you in April, it was absolutely not in my idea of saying that you didn't have a presence or that you were not there. It's the opposite, is that Roxy is there, and Roxy is at the center of attention, doesn't need to have any, right, that physical thing. and and so I was thinking, you see how you're talking about these people in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and I was thinking, well, you see, Roxy is the same. Roxy came and expressed herself as the truth of you, as being real to you, and that thing that was not really imposing or having any physicality in its reality now has absolutely that presence and that thing of truth, of being, that impose it by itself, and you do not do it. You do not need to to impose it.
Right.
It's
Right.
natural now. It's what you
It's the
are,
state of
right?
being. Absolutely. That's a great point because
Yeah.
before I would try to maintain myself and judge myself and position
Yes.
myself. How do I look? How do I walk? How do I talk? You know,
Same
the
here. Yeah.
whole idea. And those all just changed form, especially when I transitioned to Roxanne. It was like, wow, you know, I make an ugly girl. I do. And I had to get past that. I was like, man, I'm not very pretty, but I can't help but to be that. So I got to take a chance on it, So I was working myself through those ideas of my own judgments, was always objectifying, positioning myself. And now I don't maintain Roxanne, I am Roxanne. That's why my presence
Yes.
is felt, is known, because I'm vibrating I am. I'm not vibrating something that needs to be maintained, backed up by a resume that only validates the people. It's like people that are famous. You're only famous if there's people that say you're famous. That's
Yeah.
it. If you're a has-been,
Yeah.
you ain't famous. No one knows who the hell you are. You can't have that same position. So maybe you find something that gives you that position, or maybe you don't. You dwindle off into nothingness, or maybe you shift your life and become something else. It doesn't matter. Every journey is individual. But I've achieved a point of being, a state of being that doesn't need to be maintained. That's
Yeah.
perfect fucking peace.
And I mean,
It's
right?
incredible to feel this way and no effort to be I am.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, right, it's that feeling that you have to overdo yourself in order to attract attention, which means that you are in a state of lack of unworthiness, because you feel that if you do not overplay yourself, no one will ever notice you. It's that you feel that you have no position, that you are inexistent in any situation. And so I experienced that, right? I had that need of attracting attention, I, because I didn't have any, right? I felt that I was invisible, right? And that
So you
thing
needed a count.
is, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I needed to count. Until now, I count just because I am, just right, finding the thing, saying, well, I'm precious, I'm right, I just because I exist. That's all the justification. That's all I need. It's my existence by itself is the
It's
all.
enough.
It's
Because
enough.
if you're not existing, then you're non-existent. So if you're in existence, you have an experience. And non-existence doesn't know it's not even non-existence because it can't experience anything. So that
Yeah.
tells you it's not enough, or you are enough. But what I loved about that is I would tell myself that, but I still didn't know I was enough. But that's the journey. But that was enough for me
Yeah.
to use that as a tool. I'm enough in the now. I don't need to go out and seek that validation. I don't need to be liked. It's like the trolls on YouTube. They're just starving for attention. They just want to cause shit. They're like bullies. That's all they are. They're just lackful people that have never been given their worth. You don't sympathize with them. You know, if they're assholes, tell them they're a fucking asshole if you want. It doesn't matter what you do, but just realize that these people are empty of themselves. And you can give them a perspective of their own worthiness, not through preaching, but through representation. You know, it doesn't matter how you do it, but just look at what's going on in your world. I always call it tend to your own garden. This is my house, my kingdom, my garden. I tend to my own fruit that I will bear. I look at what I am, how I'm relating, what I'm representing to myself, and how creation itself interprets that. Well, it's irrelevant to me because I have no say on how anyone's going to interpret what I am. I can
Yeah.
beg them to interpret it. I can oppress them to interpret it. I can make up a whole bunch of shit about myself, like that North Korean fuck that always tells them, you know, this is how great I am. You know, and he does all that stuff. And that's a position. He's positioning himself so the people below him will position themselves and put him up on a pedestal. All of that is not right or wrong. It's just an experience. And we can't dismantle that reality. We can change it, though.
We
We
can,
change it to
absolutely.
light. 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 Internal worthiness expressed. What, Max? You have a look on your
Yeah.
face.
And I don't remember with whom I was talking, but someone that told me that the change, the change of this perspective of putting people right on a pedestal and looking up at them, that was not changing from some higher perspective that we're expressing. It's not happening fast enough, that we are still playing the game, the power game, in that sense, with governments and all of that, right? Like if there will be any expiring date in the change, or you have to change now, because if you wait too long, we're gonna be out of passions with you humans, right? That kind of idea, where who said that is
Yeah, that's
happening?
all diarrhea.
Who
That's
said
crap. People just
exactly?
putting their shit on there
And
because they need to position themselves against you.
Yeah, and to say that we ought to be better or we ought already to be something, right? It's still
It's still
positioning.
fucking
It's
positioning.
still
It's
having
comparative.
that thing. Yeah, and and for me now I see that, right, that there is, we are all, and it doesn't matter what we're doing, right, what positioning we still have, or what feelings, or whatever, it doesn't matter, because we are all doing our part, our work for ourselves. We are all ascending, evolving, and all of that. There is no leaving someone behind, or having the elected one going to some ascensional place, and the other one, well, being just cast aside from humanity as less than, right, that kind of thing. We that's the one, right, that's the expression of um this journey is a personal one, but it's a personal one that everyone is having, regardless. Time is not a factor. So I know that I attend to myself, i I do me, and I do not need to push you or to impose you to ascend, because, oh, be careful, if you don't follow me you will just stay there and lose the train. Right. You're muted.
What is that person that does that? Instead of telling people
Oh,
that, let's show them what that is.
oh, that's a
So
preacher.
what did you say? It's a what?
It's a preacher.
Okay, well
It's
tell
a
them.
guru.
It's a
It's,
preacher.
yeah,
It's a person that's trying to lead you. No one
yeah,
needs to be led.
no,
Okay, we can do that, but we have to make it personal. Take this personally, folks. You don't need to be led. Okay? We know what the fuck's going on in the world. We have to look internally to change the world. We can't change it through law. We can't keep lawing ourselves to oppression. We take away people's rights because someone else has an opinion about how you're supposed to behave. We don't need laws. What we need is representation of authenticity. So the first thing is to realize the government is not leading you. Now we
no.
as a collective are creating governments. We can't change that through legislation. We have to change that through vibration. So you have to mature as a species. You have to represent that laws are not needed. That allowance and freedom can be given as the natural state of us already without oppression. You can give people their freedom by allowing them to have that instead of oppressing them, taking it away from them. Leadership does that. It tells you you have to walk this way, talk this way, be this, because we need to get there. That is better than this. Bullshit. Nothing is better than the here and the now, unless you position yourself. And the only way you can compare yourself in a position is through emotion. Because that's all we know as humans is a positive and negative range of emotion that positions ourselves.
And I was just talking with someone, and I had this thing of saying, you see, when you are confronted with governments or anything that you are attracting as a, let's say, pretended externalization, right, that idea of power or whatever, remember that you are attracting that as one attraction in between so many choices that you could attract. This means that that you are attracting is not a finality in itself. It's not the end of it. It's one between other choices that you have. You're attracting that, so that's relevant as your attraction. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying there are other choices, other opportunity. So that shows you that is not the end of it.
Right. But also know this, the finite that is the government or whatever that is going to change itself. Okay?
Yes.
The objects change. They will change. We will not have the same monetary system in 1,000 years from now. We're not going to have the same government. We're going to be a united species. We're going to be humanity as a collective. We're growing up as a collective. And that is done through the representation of each self taking care of themselves. So those things that are finite in front of you that you consider a caliper of power is going to change in and of itself. The universe speaks one truth. It will not be held back from change. You cannot contain it. We desperately try to maintain our reality, and we put another law in, and then we create one that's going to break the law. And all the laws that have fallen off the books over the years because the collective is changing. We are the constant of change, but the change doesn't come in the radical things of now. It comes in the moments of now, and then we put it together with our memory and the idea of time to have the experience of change. But it's truly constant. And your relationship to those ideas about permanency, finites, are just positions to take about a particular reality that give you a positional idea of emotion. And that emotion fulfills the emptiness. And what is the emptiness? I'm not God. I'm born here. I'm a creator. I've come down to the fractal. I forget everything, and I'm empty. So I'm going to fill it with these identities. I'm going to fill it with purpose and needs and wants and desires and position myself against the opposing gods that walk before me. I'll position myself against nature. I'll position myself against gods. I'll position myself because I'm empty and I need to be worth something. And the only way I can fulfill that emptiness is through my fucking emotion. So remember, nothing is finite. Nothing is permanent. Just be in the flow of the now. It's an effortless journey once you let go of control, but recognizing your control is the step. And once you stop taking
Yeah.
control, and even you can control not the domination over another, control as the NED of the idea of how you're reacting to reality. Notice that.
Oh yeah.
Good shit.
Oh yeah. But the journey is, I think, something that then at some point you have realization, you discover, you see, and you understand, and through, right, trying and try the experiences that you do, you get to that change. You got to perceive yourself in a different way. You got to, because you do. It's what we do. And at the beginning, you may think, I will never get there. I will never be able to love myself. I will never be able to. It's so strange. It's so far away from what I am perceiving right now. That's your truth in that now. Don't hold that as something that is projecting in saying, oh, this will never happen, because you don't know. It's in your now, maybe you perceive it that way, but your evolution is going to completely give you a change perspective on you, and that staying in your journey, in your evolution, then brings you the change, allows the change. That because also that idea of I will never be able to, it's still trying to control your evolution, to give it a form, to give it something that, right, this, no, you don't know. And for me, as I'm realizing my control and accepting it, and accepting to not hold that anymore, then what I'm left with is the unknown. It's that I I don't know where I'm going, meaning that I cannot plan it, I cannot handle it, I cannot right now define it, and so I have to accept that this is how I'm doing it, and realize that that doesn't change my evolution, that doesn't hold back anything. I'm simply not needing to know anymore.
Not needing to know the future.
Yeah.
Because the future is just based off of the past. But the concept of thought, time, memory, so simple. But the unknowable is such a scary place for people because we're taught fear from the day one. We buy insurance, make sure we're going to die. We buy insurance to make sure we use it. I'm not saying get insurance or not get insurance. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is you got to look at the relationship that you create. I love the unknown. I love it now. When I transitioned in 2010, that was the biggest fucking unknown I've ever had. Everything else was shored up ideas based on everyone else's belief on what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to behave. I got married and divorced 3 fucking times. I've had 3 bankruptcies. I was doing everything that I was supposed to be doing and failing miserably at it because I had no worth. So of course I attracted those realities. And then when I brought Roxanne out, that's when my worth started coming up. And I was seeing that the unknown isn't a scary place. I was scared shitless. Oh yeah. But it's not a scary place. It's not in the now. It's only scary in time based off of my fears. But in the now is everything was perfect. In the now is a continual motion. So
Yeah, and
love the
the
unknown.
unknown, yeah, and the unknown is only a relationship of time. You don't know time, but the now, you know the now. There's no unknown in the now. It's there.
Yeah,
It's real.
everything is known in the now. It's you take the unknown and bring it into known and evolve yourself, and then when you're known, you become unknown again.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
Yes.
baby bombastic.
It is. So, as we come to a close, let's see. I want you just to remind everyone that is listening that in September you can apply for Roxy's school classes in San Antonio. You can go to Roxy's website, which is odysseyofascension.com.
Do you have a link for that? Can people link that or no? Can you put that in this show?
Yeah, I'll put it. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I put it.
Let me tell them it's odysseyofascension.com. Let me just tell them about the workshop. It's you can read about it, but it's an all-inclusive 5 days total. A day to come in, check in. We work for 3 days, and then you can check out. And room and food is all included in the workshop, and you get 3 days of me. We work in the morning, have our lunch, work in the evening, and then we'll work in the afternoon, and then the evening we have off, and we'll probably sit around, shoot the shit, do whatever we're going to do. But the idea is a recognition school, a school of recognition, looking at creating the observer and stuff like that. And it's the work I've done and worked on for many years to allow myself to see the intricacies of creation and how vibrationally things are. And I remember my Tesla and my Einstein. It says, if you want to understand the universe, you want to understand creation, well, you need to get busy understanding frequencies, tone, and vibration, because that's how it's created. And they knew we're on a fucking holodeck. Everyone knows we're on a holodeck, and this is all inputted through your little senses in your eyes. So they started doing that kind of work. And that kind of work led to the insight that they have to allow us to be the people we are today. And so we do the same thing. We offer and explore our internal self. So the school, it's a workshop. You know, it's a 5-day workshop. It's a good thing if you're on board with wanting to understand creation. And I've got a lot of insight to offer. So check out the website. Click the link below, Odyssey of Ascension, and it's a September workshop. So check it out now, if you could.
Yes. All right. So
what about your website, Max?
Oh, my website, breakfastwithmax.com.
Breakfast with Max. Yeah.
And if you want to send us, we have oh, I don't have it here now.
Oh,
It's
what don't you have?
Oh, yeah. But you can send us some email if you want to communicate with us. Questions or whatever. The Madden God podcast.com. Sorry, the Madden God podcast at gmail.com.
Put the link in.
That's the one. I'll put it in the link in the description, and you can send us some emails. And so now let's get out of here. Thank you for joining in and listen to us. As always, it's a pleasure. And it's always a pleasure to share this space with you, Roxanne.
And I appreciate it. Thank you. And thanks all for out there that tuned in to listen to these ideas and go rock your reality. Go take back your kingdom.
And we will be seeing you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.